Kamusta everyone, I'm Sis, and Divinity Original Sin Enhanced Edition can be a very complex game. And while I do have a video talking about Divinity Original Sin in a beginner style format, there are certain people who are looking for more than just that. Expert Marksman is the go-to skill line when it comes to ranged physical combat. This is where you'll find the specific skills in relation to using bows and crossbows alongside some basic buffs, cleanses, and the usual piercing damage. This is your archer-based skill line, and as such, obviously if you're gonna build an archer, this is the skill line you're gonna need. One of the key weaknesses of being a base archer is its sole purpose. It's first and foremost a ranged physical damage dealer. You can't rely on it on buffs, cleanses, tanking, elemental damage, or anything else. It is mostly just that, an archer. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. In fact, because of how straightforward the skill line is, it would be best that you focus on gathering elemental arrows as you play through the game, as it will add some extra versatility to your character. Being a pure archer solely focused on expert marksman alone is highly not recommended, and as such, I highly recommend mix and matching different skill lines as you go. This will make the battlefield more interesting and inevitably be more fun. And so, as promised, here's how to play Divinity Original Sin Enhanced Edition Expert Marksman Guide. Expert Marksman is the skill line all about being an archer or ranger. The skills are focused on stances, cleanses, and piercing damage. Like I said, it's usually best used with elemental arrows in hand, as it would bring so much versatility to your archer that it would work almost as if like a second mage. If you want to focus on dealing an insane amount of piercing damage from far away, the Expert Marksman skill line would be the most effective way to go. Skills, unlike talents, can be acquired by reading the appropriate skill book with the same name and can be forgotten if need be. All of them are useful when used in the right circumstance, and it's one of the many ways that would set your character apart from each other. There are 16 expert marksman skills available in the game, and it's best that you think about this carefully before teaching them into your character. This is because at max ability level, you'll only be able to obtain 6 Novice Skills, 4 Adept Skills, and 2 Master Skills. It's a weird limitation, but just enough to give it a sense of carefulness. And in true how to play style, I'll be going over them one by one, starting with the name, what it does, and what I think about it. Let's begin. Doctor cures weak, blind, mute, infected, and grants 1 bodybuilding for 2 turns. I'll say the same thing I say when it comes to cleansing skills. It is alright when it does maybe a couple of things well. Obviously it's all situational, but it's extremely worth it when it does a lot of things right when the situation arises. If this cleanses only 2 things, I might not recommend it, but since it does multiple status effects, it's extremely handy when you need it. First Aid cures bleeding, crippled, deceased, and heals the target for 10%. Same as Doctor, it cleanses multiple things. That is always a plus in my book, and it has heal. Always great to have if your regeneration skill is down and you just really need something that can keep you alive longer. Ranged Power Stance improve the damage of your bow and crossbow at the cost of precision. Like I said in Man-at-Arms, the Expert Marksman skill line also has its stances. Whether or not you find this useful is actually dependent on your build. Most of the time, I wouldn't really need it because I'll almost always use skills to attack anyways, and whenever my skills are on cooldown, I'll substitute them to just using my elemental arrows instead. Yes, it does increase damage, but it also reduces your precision, something you need to hit your attacks. Something an archer absolutely need 100% of. Ranged Precision Stance. Improved chance to hit with bow or crossbow at the cost of movement speed. This one I would actually recommend more than the Ranged Power Stance, as it will increase your chance to hit with the downside of you just being able to move around less. And if you think about it, you wouldn't really need to move around anyways as an archer unless your enemy somehow got really close to you. And even then, there's a multitude of other things that you can do when it does happen. You can kill it, teleport it away, stun it, knock it down, freeze it, or do any sort of crowd control. So yeah, good skill, take it if you don't have anything else to take. Ricochet. Fire a normal arrow that deals 100% weapon damage and then firks off to the next target up to 4 times. One of my favorite skills, and I'm sure many others. It's a chain skill that will bounce to other opponents upon impact. What's great about this is that even if the first shot you did missed, it'll still continue on with its assumed trajectory, hitting or missing the next few opponents. It's your go-to skill for damaging multiple opponents that are moderately close to each other. Always nice to have. Splintered Arrow. Fire an arrow that shatters upon impact. Same as Ricochet, but instead of bouncing off enemies, the arrow would just simply explode, doing an AoE hit. It does decent damage and is much better than using a normal auto attack for multiple opponents. Obviously. Trait Poisoning cures poison and the target gains 100% poison resistance for 2 turns. This treats poison. If this only treats poison, I wouldn't really take this because usually you can just out heal it, or even if you can't, chances are the fight would be over before that poison could kill you. So yeah, the reason this skill could be useful is because of the 100% poison resistance, which could come in handy when it comes to poison traps while exploring. Take this if poison is a big problem for you. Next is the Adept Expert Marksman skill line. You can only get 4 out of the 6 skills it has to offer. All of them are useful, but it'll depend on you which one you want to leave out. Absorb the Elements decreases armor but grants higher resistances against all types of elements. If you are against enemies that are solely magic based, this would be great, but the times that these situations happen are rare, and when it does, you'll be in the back lines anyway, so you're not supposed to tank these shots. Your main goal here is to dish out as much damage as you can with the limited amount of action points you have. That's why instead I suggest taking Barrage. Fires multiple arrows in a straight line, each dealing 75% weapon damage. Piercing. I don't know why I said piercing. This is a great skill doing substantial damage in the line. It's a great sniping skill, and if your main target dies, the skill will still hit whatever is behind that said target. So yeah, you'll be doing a lot of damage nonetheless. Farseer grants a target improved sight and a 50% chance to hit with ranged weapons for 4 turns. Removes Blinded. Blinded is the absolute worst thing that you can get as a ranger. If you get blinded, then you're basically useless aside from your non-target skills, which is not a lot if you don't count elemental arrows in your side. Take this as being blinded is definitely not what you want. If you're sure that you can somehow avoid this, then skip it. But you can't. Infect the target with a vicious disease. Disease lowers the target's constitution and bodybuilding by -3 and -2 respectively, making them squishier and more prone to specific types of crowd control. What's best is that this disease would actually infect other characters that get close to it, causing them to have the same effects. It's a good debuff, but be careful as it also goes through your party members as well. With careful board control, you can make this work. Survivor's Karma increases luck and critical chance of you and all allies around you. This is great. It's like Man-at-Arms and Courage, but instead it'll increase the chance to hit and critical chance, something that is really great to have in combat. Vampiric Arrow. An arrow deals half of your weapon damage that fully heals you over 2 rounds. It's interesting. It certainly has its uses. One thing I have to say though is that don't think of this skill as a lifesteal arrow that does damage, because it doesn't do as much damage as you think it does. It might look like it, but no. This is mainly a healing skill for your ranger that fully heals them. You just have to shoot someone in the process. Don't start a fight with this. Don't use this thinking it'll do a lot of damage over time, because it won't. This is a healing skill. Next is Master Skills. This is a big one. These are game-changing powerful skills and you can take 2 out of the 3 available. I personally see the first 2 being really useful here, as the last one is a bit situational, but it'll depend on you which one you want to leave out. Arrow Spray fires 16 arrows in a 45-degree arc. This is an amazing skill and is one of my favorites. This will fire 16 arrows in a cone, which you would think is an AoE. And that's right, it is a nice AoE, but what I usually do is, especially for a big boss fight or mini boss fight, is that I get up close to a boss, usually teleporting my ranger to them or them to the ranger, and then using the skill at point blank range. This will make it so that all 16 arrows will hit the same enemy. It's incredible because doing that basically grants you 8 100% weapon damage shots to a single enemy. It's so much damage that I had boss fights drop into 50% health and even as far to 30% health with this skill alone, provided you leveled up and geared up your archer wisely. It's a great skill. Worst case scenario is that after you use it, your archer is basically dead since it's right next to the boss, and your archer is not tanky. One shot from that boss and your archer is dead, but you get to deal an overpowered amount of damage for it, so it's kinda worth it. Rain of Arrows. Let a shower of piercing arrows rain down on your enemy, dealing 300% weapon damage to each enemy. Another great skill. It's an AoE damage skill. What did you expect with a name like Rain of Arrows? It does impressive damage for what it is, but it's mostly useful for tightly packed enemies. Shrapnel Shatter. Target a corpse or container and make it explode. The flying debris will damage characters around it. This one is the one I have the least faith on, mostly because of what it requires to work, and that's a corpse and container. This won't work on living enemies, and even if, let's say, you do find a corpse and container, chances are that thing won't be in a place where you want it to be. If it is, I'm sure it's gonna do a lot of damage, but you have to make sure that it fits that situation. What if it doesn't? So yeah, I'm not doing that. And that's it. The Expert Marksman skill line is for Rangers and Archers. It's actually one of the most easy to learn skill line in the game because of how straightforward it is. The second one being Pyrokinetics, and it's a good skill line to start the game with. Like the video if you don't dislike it, and dislike if you don't like it. Share it with your friends, and if you do like it, consider subscribing to the Phantom Heart for more, and click on that notification bell to be reminded of my future videos. I'm Sizz, and thank you for watching.